The world is on edge. The war is breaking its limits and the balance is collapsing. Ukraine's drones and missiles are now striking deep inside Russia, tearing apart the myth of untouchable Moscow. Meanwhile, Finland mobilizes massive military drills right on Russia's doorstep, a move that's causing panic in the Kremlin, where citizens' patrols are already being formed. But the biggest shock, Russia has just launched its nuclear-powered monster, a cruiser armed with the new Poseidon underwater drone, a weapon designed for total annihilation. NATO is on high alert. The West is preparing its answer. And inside Russia's army, chaos grows. Single fathers forced to fight while their children end up in orphanages. What's really happening behind the front lines? All the details in our special edition of Hotspot. Ukraine is rapidly scaling up domestic production of missiles and drones, building a potent homegrown arsenal. It's no longer just well-known Neptune and Flamingo systems. A new generation of Ukrainian weapons is emerging, faster, more accurate, and capable of striking deep into enemy territory. This report examines the latest breakthroughs in Ukraine's defense industry and their implications for future operations against the aggressor.
Ukraine has destroyed a Russian Oreknik on Russian territory. This was stated by the head of the SBU, Vasyl Malyuk. It has not been disclosed exactly what weapon was used by the Ukrainian special services. Nevertheless, the Ukrainian arms industry is expanding significantly every year. Ukraine is successfully using the Neptune and Flamingo missiles together to strike Russia. President Volodymyr Zelensky told journalists about this and noted that while it's not being used on a large scale, it is already in use. These are the first tangible results regarding the weaponry.
In the future, I think that the missiles and missile strikes carried out with the Flamingo or Neptune will be accompanied by a greater variety of different types of unmanned systems, drones, each performing its own function. Some will distract air defenses, some will destroy air defenses, some will create interference, some will suppression using electronic warfare.
The president also mentioned the use of the Polyanitsia drone missile, which has already struck military depots dozens of times of the enemy. The second positive trend, Zelensky named the use of the Ruta drone missile, which for the first time flew 250 kilometers and struck an offshore platform.
We have quite a few developments specifically in drone missiles, and there are analysts who say that these are all small-sized cruise missiles. I don't quite agree with that for one simple reason. Usually a cruise missile is something that has some kind of wing mechanism. That is, the missile is launched either from the air or from the ground, then these wings unfold and they create aerodynamic lift, which allows the cruise missile to fly long distances. Our Ukrainian rocket drones, for example, have a fixed wing, that is, a wing that was installed once and for all and doesn't require any special launchers or special cases that are inserted into these launchers in order to ensure standardization.
However, the greatest success for the Ukrainians is considered to be the mass use of the Kamikaze Lyuty drone, with up to 300 UAVs deployed.
A Lyuty is a system with a slightly different concept. It has nothing in common with the Shahed, neither externally nor internally. Both the control system and the guidance system are different. And the components it has, image recognition, target correction, artificial intelligence, they have absolutely nothing in common with the Shaheds.
The security service of Ukraine's naval drones have improved in both payload and range, now capable of striking targets over 1,500 kilometers away. They were first used in 2022 during the attack on Russian Black Sea Fleet ships in Sevastopol Bay. Since then, these drones have been constantly evolving and improving.
Our security service of Ukraine now has significantly more ways to destroy targets than before. And it's not just the Malyuk anymore, there are many other things as well. If there are tasks for the Malyuks are used. If there are tasks for other drones are used. Since
August of this year, it has been announced that the Flamingo missile has entered serial production, capable of striking targets at a distance of 3,000 kilometers. The modernized Neptune has been successfully striking ground targets for a year now. Currently, it can reach distances of up to 400 kilometers. It has been announced that soon it will be able to hit targets at 1,000 kilometers.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine today. Join us now.
Ukraine's precision drone and missile strikes are now reaching deep inside Russia, targeting key military assets and shattering the illusion of Russian security. Each operation demonstrates increasing sophistication as Ukraine's advanced weapons redefine the modern battlefield. This report analyzes the technology behind these strikes and their potential to shape the future course of the war.
Distances of hundreds or even thousands of kilometers are no obstacle for Ukrainian weaponry. Russian oil refineries,
Well, that's clear. The refineries are fucked. That's obvious even without saying it.
key facilities of the military-industrial complex and the Russian war machine.
Honestly, it's a nightmare. Damn, it's getting wild.
And recently, in response to the ongoing shelling of Ukraine's civilian infrastructure, the Ukrainian armed forces have also started targeting Russia's critical infrastructure.
No way, fuck! No way, fuck!
Eric, look.
Where are we going? What a ride! No way, fuck!
When the Kremlin threatens Ukrainians with blackouts, Russians should also prepare for a cold and harsh winter.
If they threaten blackouts, for example, in the capital of Ukraine, the Kremlin should realize that a blackout will also come to the Russian capital.
For a long time, Western allies restricted Ukraine's ability to strike deep into Russian territory, as a result of which Ukraine expanded its own long-range arsenal. According to the head of Ukrainian intelligence, Kyrylo Budanov, today 99% of strikes on Russian oil refineries are carried out with Ukrainian weapons.
At the time when all this started, when people said we were fighting with one hand tied behind our back, I tend to agree with your opinion that this is the correct interpretation of what was happening then. But now we have our own domestic production. It is precisely our domestic production that has given us the ability to use our forces and resources the way we see fit.
The Kremlin understands only the language of force. The best argument in any negotiations with Moscow is a powerful Ukrainian army and defense industry. In particular, the domestic production of long-range drones and missiles with which Ukraine regularly strikes targets in Russia, located thousands of kilometers or more from the front line.
In order to somehow bring this war to a stalemate, to shift it, we need to learn not only to repel enemy attacks on the front line, but also to suppress their logistics and their air force. That's why it became necessary, and I'm not even mentioning the need to strike at Russia's military-industrial enterprises and energy system. This is
Belgorod. There's no electricity anywhere in Belgorod at all.
If the simplest drones to manufacture are used for strikes on Russian oil refineries, jet-powered drones are better suited for targeting military-industrial facilities, like the Polyanitia, Peklo and Bars types. Their technical specifications are not disclosed. Experts suggest that the range of these jet-powered drones is between 500 and 700 kilometers. The main advantage is their low cost compared to cruise missile competitors.
These are the two places that are the most significant. Cities like Moscow and Leningrad, which are the most protected by the Russian Federation's air defense systems, could start getting hit every evening. Bars will be able to reach them, and I believe this should happen systematically.
For dessert, Ukrainian long-range missiles are in store for the occupiers. Long-range Neptunes and Flamingos with ranges of 1,000 and 3,000 kilometers respectively. The Ukrainian Pink Bird, in addition to its enormous range, impresses with a warhead weight of about 1,000 kilograms.
usually the warhead of a modern cruise missile is 450, but at most 500 kilograms. As a rule, almost all missiles have a 450 kilogram warhead. What does a 1-ton warhead provide? When it hits a target, for example, an industrial facility, 2 such missiles can completely disable it for at least a year. That is, there will be a single crater about 20 meters in diameter.
Russian terrorists shelling Ukrainian cities must realize that a mirrored response will come. It will definitely happen.
Russia has launched a new nuclear-powered cruiser, a carrier of Putin's underwater drone Poseidon, touted as a weapon of retribution. The vessel is capable of carrying multiple nuclear torpedoes with virtually unlimited range and devastating power. Washington and Brussels responded immediately, as Western defense analysts are already assessing how NATO could counter this latest Kremlin threat. Our full report covers the international reaction and what the West plans to do next.
The arms race has indeed begun. Nuclear blackmail continues. Following the test of the Burevestnik missile in Severodvinsk, a ceremonial launching of the nuclear submarine Khabarovsk was held at the Sevmash plant.
The nuclear submarine cruiser Khabarovsk is ready to leave the dock. Start moving.
According to Russian media, the Khabarovsk submarine can carry up to 12 unmanned nuclear torpedoes. Poseidon. Moscow claims that Poseidon is capable of operating at depths of up to 1,000 meters. And it can reach speeds of over 100 knots, making it difficult to detect and intercept. With their new torpedoes, the Kremlin's inhabitants are trying to intimidate NATO countries.
The development of the Burevestnik made it possible to conduct tests of the Poseidon. There is simply no equal to this weapon. The President oversaw this project from start to finish. He accompanied the project every step of the way. We see the result. An increase in the country's defense capability. And today, those abroad who wish us harm should be preparing to bow before our Supreme Commander-in-Chief, just so that they would use this weapon.
But in reality, this is just fantasy and empty bravado about yet another so-called unparalleled weapon. In reality, the Russian Navy, and especially its submarine fleet, lags decades behind its main competitor, the United States.
No one even comes close. No one can compare with us. Russia and China are 25 years behind the US in both quantity and quality of submarines. In December, a new Virginia-class submarine will be laid down.
While the Kremlin is launching ships into the water, Khabarovsk, the White House is announcing the largest modernization of the Navy in modern history. But even without this modernization, the US already has the most powerful naval and submarine fleet in the world.
The main component of the Russian Federation's Navy is its submarine fleet. But unlike the United States, the Russian Federation has about 17 nuclear submarines, whereas, as I emphasized again, the United States has about 70 of them. In the arsenal of the Russian Federation's Navy, in addition to 17 nuclear submarines, there are 33 diesel-electric submarines.
One of these Russian diesel-electric submarines, the Novorossiysk, broke down in the Mediterranean Sea off the coast of Europe a few weeks ago, becoming the subject of jokes by the NATO Secretary General.
Now, essentially, there is almost no Russian military presence left in the Mediterranean Sea. There is only one broken Russian submarine which, limping along like a lame duck, is making its way home from patrol.
For the North Atlantic Alliance, led by the United States, the Navy is key. It is a tool for deterring and influencing potential adversaries anywhere in the world.
The Navy is the pride of the United States, and it is the main component both in conducting military operations outside the United States and as an element of the United States military political presence in virtually every region of the globe. Let me remind you, the United States has the largest Navy in the world. Moreover, their main pride is the carrier strike groups, the aircraft carrier strike groups. They have a total of 11 aircraft carriers.
Ukraine has also made a significant contribution to reducing Russia's naval potential. According to the Ukrainian Navy, since the start of the full-scale war by the armed forces of Ukraine, with the help primarily of long-range missiles and unmanned naval drones, they destroyed 28 Russian ships, including the submarine Rostov-on-Don. Once the pride of Erefia, the Black Sea Fleet has been left without the Black Sea.
Finland is preparing for major military exercises involving around 15,000 troops set to run from November through December, including areas along the Russian border. The announcement has sparked genuine alarm in Moscow. In response, authorities in Russia's Karelia region have begun forming so-called People's Patrols to assist border guards near Finland. The initiative was announced by Karelia's head Artur Perfenchikov. Full details in our report.
Acting proactively, Finland is deploying 15,000 troops to the border with Russia. The Finns are preparing for the largest series of military exercises of the year. Conscripts, reservists, professional soldiers, as well as units from allied countries, Sweden and the United Kingdom, will take part in them. According to the country's ground forces, the purpose of the maneuvers is to test the army's readiness to defend the state and to strengthen cooperation with NATO allies.
These are NATO's countermeasures in response to aggressive actions by the occupying country. On the territory of the occupying country, in close proximity to the Finnish border, there is currently intensive engineering construction of new military bases by the occupying country's army. This concerns Petrozavodsk, Kandalaksha and other settlements within the Russian Federation, which indicate the redeployment of Russian army units in direct proximity to the Finnish border.
One of the largest episodes will be the Livali Sentry exercise, which will take place in southern Finland from November 27th to December 4th. It will involve around 7,000 participants.
The Russian Federation has constantly made it clear to Finland that it poses a threat to this country. Moreover, there has been a constant element of military political pressure on Finland aimed accordingly at maintaining its so-called neutral status. In other words, there is absolutely no basis to claim that friendly or good neighborly relations were established after the occupation of Finnish territories. The Russian military presence near Finland's borders has been constantly increasing.
In the spring of 2023, Finland became a member of the North Atlantic Alliance. This provoked a sharp reaction from Russia, further worsening bilateral relations. In addition, Finland imposed sanctions against Russia and refused to grant asylum to Russians fleeing mobilization. After that, Putin's lackeys began blaming the Finns for every possible wrongdoing at every opportunity. For example, in September, former alcoholic president Dmitry Medvedev decided that Finland was preparing to attack Russia.
After joining NATO under the guise of defensive measures, Helsinki is pursuing a confrontational course, preparing for war with Russia, apparently setting up a springboard for an attack on us.
Moreover, according to him, Russia supposedly has a legal right to reparations from the Finns for World War II. He claims that at the time they paid too little thanks to the goodwill of the Russians.
This is actually an element of diplomatic military pressure on Finland, and similar statements are being made not only about Finland but also accordingly about Sweden. This also concerns the island of Gotland and accordingly Poland.
Following the alcoholic Medvedev, the chairman of the State Duma Defense Committee, Andrei Kartapolov, also made aggressive statements. He stated, or rather threatened, that Russia is ready to defend itself at any moment since they have everything they need. Medvedev had previously spoken about this as well.
We cannot ignore the significant fact that Finland is currently a member of the North Atlantic Alliance, and this, in turn, predetermines changes in our military approaches to securing the border and responding to possible unfriendly acts.
The political and military leaders of Finland are doing everything they can to emphasize that an attack by Russia would be an act of suicidal madness.
The Russian Federation is demonstrating its readiness for a direct confrontation with the NATO bloc, and accordingly the first countries that will be in the focus of the occupying country's army will be respectively Finland and the Baltic states. Therefore the risks are quite high. This is also evidenced by the formation of new military units in the Leningrad military district and accordingly the deployment of military infrastructure directly near the borders with Finland.
Earlier, it became known that Finland had offered NATO to establish a new military base on its territory. Helsinki could become a base for large NATO reconnaissance drones.
Disturbing reports continue to surface from within Russia's army. Single fathers serving on the front lines are being denied discharge, even when their children left without other guardians end up in orphanages. Human rights advocates say military commanders routinely reject appeals for early release, citing wartime necessity. The result: broken families and children placed in state care while their fathers remain trapped at the front. More on these and other troubling cases in Russia's military in our full report.
The wounded and maimed are sent into assaults, and those deemed undesirable among the military are simply eliminated. And if someone doesn't want to sign a contract, they'll end up signing it anyway. But the newly minted soldier only finds out about this after the fact. It's also nearly impossible to resign from the army. Even single fathers, who by law should be released without issue, are denied discharge. During this time, their children are simply placed in orphanages.
According to the single fathers interviewed by Verstka, commanders may initially just refuse to accept the resignation report, denying discharge verbally. If the documents are accepted, they might get lost, but the servicemen continue to serve while their children temporarily stay with relatives or are placed in orphanages.
So it turns out that with a living parent, the children are orphans. But really, what can you say about discharging a healthy man when even severely wounded soldiers aren't written off in the Russian army?
They looked at us and said, "What's with the healthy guy with no leg?" "Oh, that's a leg. A leg. Even though the call sign is sky, it's a leg." He's been sitting here for days too, doing fuck all. What was I trying to say with that? They came in, looked around, asked who we were, why we were here, and were told the reasons. All right, guys, got it. And then they left.
These occupiers will soon be sent on their final meat assault. The fact that some of them are missing limbs doesn't concern anyone. Their commanders just use them as disposable cannon fodder. Some occupiers still believe the state will help them, so they complain to the Kremlin ombudsman about being denied medical care or receiving poor treatment. The number of such complaints has quadrupled in 2 years, from 459 to 1,976.
The applicant's husband, after receiving treatment at a frontline hospital, was sent to a military medical commission to determine his fitness for military service. Upon arriving at his military unit to receive the order for the medical commission, he was sent to the front line. Since May 2024, he has been listed as missing in action. After injuries or due to pre-existing health issues, not all soldiers are given enough time for full and proper rehabilitation. Sometimes a soldier is sent back to the front despite doctors' recommendations to continue treatment and the need for rehabilitation. As a result, a serviceman who is physically unable to perform combat duties ends up on the front line.
But at least these ones went to the front on their own. And there are cases when Russian men only find out after the fact that their occupation has been changed.
Black recruiting, yes, black recruiters. They've turned into slave traders. We basically have slave trading going on, supplying people to the front.
Everyone, without exception, ends up getting caught in this. Cerebral palsy, mental illnesses, missing limbs, all of that is nothing and will be put to use in the Russian army. The local administrations, of course, know all about it and even encourage and assist.
In my home village of Cherkasy, they got a guy from Siberia drunk, married him off to an elderly woman of loose morals and low social responsibility. Then they sent him to the front. He died there. And now they're claiming the compensation as his wife, even though he never even saw her in his life.
His commanders can help with the elimination of such a Russian soldier. The occupiers complain that unwanted SVO soldiers are often sent on suicide assaults. One of these roles during an assault is called a beacon by the soldiers. The occupier is sent without a weapon or body armor to expose the firing positions of Ukrainian troops.
You just run in one direction with no way back. There's a blocking detachment behind you. They don't let you go back. Your only chance to survive is to get wounded and be taken prisoner like...
The occupiers admit not only to commanders eliminating their own kind, but also to the killing of civilians. A Russian soldier recounted how his commander entered the wrong coordinates, which resulted in an artillery strike on a village. Many people were killed, including children. The soldier only found out about what happened after the administration of the so-called LNR complained to the command.
Basically, they mixed up the Grad and Uragan targets. They were called the same by grid squares. And the idiot who was on duty at the council, he just basically mixed them up. The captain was in charge. Why should I care? They just give me the numbers to call the battalion commander. So he says, how are the stats? Fine. He says, do you know 12 kids? He says, screwed 9 women.
Of course, the incident was covered up, and on Russian television, they reported that supposedly Ukrainian servicemen were in that village. And this is just one of the stories that have come to light in the last few days. In reality, the situation is much worse, and with each passing day, it keeps getting worse.
At this moment, that's all from me, Maria Farafonova. Even more hellish frontline news in our next episode. But for now, don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button. See you soon!